Hi everyone, today we are continuing our series of the online webinars, and today I'd like to give you some tips on how to choose the most private fitness tracker. Purchasing fitness tracker is becoming more and more up to date because of the global pandemic. People tend to have more sedentary lifestyles than they did before, and as a result experiencing problems with less activity and weight gain. And actually me myself, I was guilty of having a few extra kilograms just because working from home. So yeah, usually when we are choosing a device, we pay attention on suppose deciding factor is the price to quality ratio. However, nowadays more and more attention is being given to the uh, privacy aspect of a device. And if you're interested in how to uh, choose the most private device, or at least to share as little data as possible with the manufacturers of those devices, then this presentation is perhaps going to be interesting. Here we'll look at the two main techniques, or maybe two group of techniques. The first group requires you to own a device in order to do the analysis, and this is perhaps um, wouldn't be as popular as the other group that does not require to own a device in order to understand how private it is. All right, so we first in our first group that does not require to own a device, we'll talk about how to analyze privacy policy and extract as much information as possible from it. We'll also see how to jailbreak your device to make it not send any data to the manufacturer. And this method does not require you to own a device to understand whether or not your device can be actually jailbroken. And then we'll move to a second group, which requires you to own a device in advance. Without owning a device, you cannot really tell how private it is. And here in that group, we'll see how to detect the websites that are being contacted by your smartphone application and what data is being sent to those websites. And then later we'll see how to, finally we'll analyze how to actually see how, what are those websites that are being contacted? Are they the most trustful, if you will, or are they some, dodgy and perhaps better not to go websites? All right, let's begin, and we'll start with privacy policy. So basically, privacy policy is a sort of a drafted document which outlines all the privacy aspects of the relationship between a customer and a company. And nowadays, it's a rare case when a company, especially those that collect uh, personal data, would not have one since it's illegal. And as a result, for any device, or at least for most of the devices, they would have a privacy policy. And if you really, put your eye on one of the devices, it wouldn't hurt just to check the privacy policy before purchasing one. So what we are looking for in a privacy policy. Here on the slide, I outlined sort of the most common, you know, uh, what the most common types of data that we are looking in a privacy policy. So first would be what types of information being collected, which basically would indicate what data is being collected by the manufacturer. And we'll see a little bit later that it doesn't, as for fitness trackers, this information is not limited to just like your steps, calories, heart rate, and whatnot. We'll see that it's actually a little bit more than that. Then we have how the personal information is being used, whether or not manufacturers use it just for their own analysis algorithm. Maybe they sell them to some third parties. Maybe they share some of the products of this data. Maybe they share aggregated version, whatnot. So this, if we search for something like this in the privacy policy, we'll be able to understand what is going to happen with our personal fitness information. Then we'll have a third-party website, which are basically partners of the manufacturer, and apparently our second point, what can happen to our information, is directly related to the third party. So they can do everything they describe here with third parties that have been described here. And yeah, we will talk later that they tend not to not describe all the partners explicitly. And lastly, we have how we share information, which basically would describe whether or not they just sent all the information to the third-party partners, or they perhaps send some parts, some aggregated variants, some, anonymized versions of the data, whatnot. And here we need to say that it is sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes it is the case that that those privacy policies are drafted in a way that make them really hard to read and understand. Like they are deliberately obscure, and they kind of designed for you just to skip them and click agree and go on. And here, and it's of course not a good sign. Of course, it's not the case for everyone. Some of the companies really try to be transparent and user-friendly and try to be as explicit as possible in their privacy policy. But we need to be prepared for privacy policies that are completely unreadable. For instance, on this slide, I present some of the privacy policy. One of the privacy policy that is for a manufacturer who is consistently in top 5 in regard to their market share of wearable devices. So it's a very, very major company. And here you can see that we'll first look at the upper part of the slide. And here they say that, all right, the most important is here. They're saying that basically we do not limit our data collection just by fitness data, but we also collect all the data that is associated with your account and with your session, such as email address, such as IP address, such as MAC address, and other unique identifiers that are linked to your device. And you might say, okay, who cares? Let them collect it. I don't care. But the big problem is that it enables a linkage attack. So let's say they collected both your fitness data and your identifiers, and then let's say, I'm not saying that what they do, but let's say for an argument's sake that they'll share this identifier data with Amazon, and Amazon knows your email address and knows your MAC address from their session as well. So let's say Amazon obtains a copy of your IDs and a copy of your health data, and as a result, they can link your Amazon account to your fitness account, and they can see that you're perhaps not too active or perhaps overweight. They can use this data for their advertisement, which is, yeah, this data is priceless for them, very, very important. So, and as a result, you see, you kind of can circulate over the internet over all the services that are using, and it can be very, very privacy unfriendly, if you will. And also here we can see that this policy for this device, the policy was drafted in a way that says basically that even if we don't mention anything in the privacy policy, we can still collect everything. So in a sense, it's just we collect everything basically. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, whatever can be linked to you, we are collecting it. That's what it says basically, and it's just very, very bad. So they basically, it does not follow the principle of data minimization. It's data maximization. We milk you like a cow. We collect everything that we can. Yeah, perhaps if I would be choosing a device, if I see something like this, I would be less willing to purchase one. That's for sure. Let's say, yeah, let's say we are not satisfied with a privacy policy, but we really want the device. Like we really want this device. It's very good. It's not that pricey. You know, the reviews are very good. It's super nice, but it's not privacy friendly. So what we can do, we can actually, before purchasing the device, we can go to a certain web resources where people, privacy-friendly activists, already try to jailbreak the device to make sure that it doesn't send any data, no data at all, to the manufacturer. So first, website will be Gadget Bridge. It's basically, it provides a custom application that is open source, that does not send any data anywhere. It only keeps fitness data locally on the phone, and supports up to 40 or maybe now even more devices that are, well, quite popular. Let's put it this way. So yeah, for instance, Mi Band 1 to 6, Mi Band is, I think, third place now in regards to the market share wearable devices. And yeah, brand new Mi Band 6 like came out a couple of months, maybe 1 month ago, and yeah, very fresh, brand new flagship device that can be already jailbroken with this Gadget Bridge tool. Another service, Streamline Band, is basically a list of tutorials on how to connect some of their devices to other applications. So we are not going to use a closed source code application of the manufacturer, but some other which is perhaps more reliable. So next we have a group of devices. Sorry, a group of methods for analyzing the levels of privacy for the smart bands that require you update on a device. So for the vast majority of listeners, I assume it wouldn't be very practical to purchase a device before deciding whether or not you want this device. However, if, for instance, you have a friend or a colleague who wants a similar device, you can borrow it like for a day or a week, do all the necessary experiments, and decide whether or not you actually are satisfied with the levels of privacy it provides, and whether or not you are going to use this device. So yeah, first we'll see how to identify what websites are being contacted and what data is being sent to those devices. For this, we can use traffic analysis tools such as Wireshark and TCP dump. Those tools, what they do is basically they display all the traffic that goes between your phone, which runs the application of the smart band, and the server of the manufacturer. However, nowadays, since vast majority of connections are encrypted, it is likely that if you're not actually, it was a vast majority of the users would not be able to make much sense of the encrypted connection. So it is better to use a man-in-the-middle tool instead, such as Burp or Fiddler, for instance. What man-in-the-middle does, basically, it imitates the server of the manufacturer, and basically, it basically says to the application that runs on the phone that, hey, I am the server, send all the data to me, and it obtains all the data unencrypted, or rather, it is being provided the an encryption key, so it can see all the data, and then the server, the man-in-the-middle server, sends the data to the actual server later. So as a result, we can see all the connections and all the data that being sent. Here on this slide, we can see actually the data that the Fitbit application, the Fitbit official application, communicates to the servers with all the data that is being shared. We can see, for instance, here that it has Facebook as a third party, and if you do not really trust Facebook for any reason, and perhaps rightfully so, you can just say it's a no-go for me. I'm not going to use this device. However, using man-in-the-middle sometimes give us gives us some of the third parties that are not directly identifiable. For instance, here we have MCBS, whatever, like some numbers. That's basically like looks like a hash rather than actually name of a website. And it's a pod, so we actually sent a lot of the data to this server. It looks very dodgy, if I'm being honest, like, so yeah, so but maybe it's actually benign, we don't know, right? So how do we identify whether or not those websites that have been contacted are harmful for us, and since our data is going to these websites, right? So what we can do is actually we can try to employ some of the techniques to actually find out information about those websites. So first is SimilarWeb. It's basically a website analyzer that can provide websites that are similar to the websites that you are trying to scan, right? Unfortunately, SimilarWeb does not always work, especially for those websites that are less popular. But perhaps if we plug this MCBS website, whatever, to the SimilarWeb, and SimilarWeb returns to us that a similar website to this is, I don't know, advertisement.com or something, then we kind of know that this website is probably used for like personalized advertisement or something of this like. Then we have GeoIP and many websites of a similar nature that are mapping an IP address to a physical location, which is very helpful if, for instance, you do not want your data go to, let's say, United States, for example, China, maybe, yeah, the main manufacturers of wearables. Then we have services like Whois, which basically domain lookup that it's like GeoIP, but it gives us more data about the domain, such as who is an ISP, internet service provider, for this server, for this websites, and yeah, what jurisdiction it has, what country, etc., etc. And lastly, but perhaps the most effective way would be to employ a search engine, to use search engine, because you won't believe me, but you're not the first person who are, privacy oriented. And for instance, during my experiments, when I was trying to identify my websites, I search engine, and there were people already who were asking those questions. So yeah, if you effectively use search engine and some of the privacy forums, for instance on Reddit or some other resources, you can actually gain a lot of information regarding the privacy, what those websites are, what data is being collected, etc., etc. So using search engine is, I guess, the most effective way of all. So to conclude, I would like to present some of the home messages. And the first one would be that you see, like, qualitative / price aspects is not nowadays as decisive as it used to be, because because if something is really cheap and you feel it should be more expensive, then it is very likely that you actually paying with your data instead of money for the service that is being provided. And even if everything looks very, very good on paper, perhaps you will actually pay more by, well, not pay more in terms of money, but pay more in terms of privacy that you relinquish. And yeah, what I also want to point out that it's not always that this is, I don't know, let's say, like, for instance, Google products or like Xiaomi products are usually quite good in regards to price. But of course, they are hoarding information, they are collecting everything, they are milking you like a cow, they're collecting everything, everything that is basically possible to collect. However, like, many privacy activists are working on this problem, so they're trying to jailbreak the device, they're trying to somehow crack the devices to not send any data. So it's still possible to use them in many cases, just we need to be extra cautious about it. Secondly, privacy policy is the key. And there was a research that showed that more than 50% of the people have never, ever read a privacy policy. So, like, never, ever. They just basically scroll down, accept, go on, forget. And this is not very good. Of course, for some of the services, like, I don't know, if you're using like some software tools that you have to use, you have to kind of accept it. Yeah, so maybe there is no point in reading. But when it comes to choosing I was referring to like a software agreement. Like let's say you install a MATLAB, you have to accept it. If you have to use it, you eventually, doesn't matter what is written in a privacy policy, you will accept it, right? But when it comes to choosing a smart band, right? You can easily choose another one. You're not obliged to choose this one explicitly, right? So you can actually like hop around privacy policies right here and there, and perhaps one company will strike you as being extremely transparent, and it lists everything that it collects, etc., and you will be willing more to actually purchase that device instead. I'll tell you a story. I was working with a Huawei Health. Huawei Health is the application of Huawei for fitness trackers, and it was a year ago. I noticed I skipped. I wasn't choosing a device, but I was analyzing the traffic that goes between the application and the server. I noticed that no data is being transmitted at all, so like no fitness data. So basically, the official application would not send any data to the server. I was like, what? It's impossible, right? There has to be something is not right. Maybe I set it up wrong or whatever. And I actually read the privacy policy for Huawei, and I noticed that they explicitly say, oh, we don't collect any fitness data. It is being only kept locally on your phone, and all good. I'm like, wow, that's a super unexpected that a company, it was 2020, right? So in 2020, a company wouldn't collect any data at all, and they say, okay, just keep your data, use our service, we're all good. So when I was preparing this presentation, I actually looked it up once again, and now they're collecting everything basically. So it took them, yeah, I was very surprised. So if this presentation would come out a year ago, then there were still some very, very major companies like Huawei that would not collect any data. So they're providing you their service without extracting as much data from you as possible. So yeah, if you read this privacy policy, you will instantly purchase a device. It's a very, very strong point for them. But unfortunately, now it's not the case, so I cannot recommend Huawei anymore for you. And Huawei, by the way, is also is in top 5 in regards to market share for wearable devices. And lastly, and perhaps the most important advice I can give you is, yeah, I understand that the vast majority of the listeners would not go as far as like install man in the middle and try to like borrow the device from someone, try to search all the connections. But searching online is very easy now, and if you know the right keywords to put into the search engine, you would actually collect lots of data in regards to privacy. There are numerous privacy forums where people discuss their findings in regards to particular models of the wearable devices, where they analyze what data is being shared, how private it is, and yeah, privacy activists, and they're working relentlessly to raise awareness in the community in regards to privacy, and you can actually gain a lot by reading those and understanding what's right and what's wrong. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope it was somewhat useful, and yeah, see you next seminar. Bye bye. Thank you.